All right, we are back, keeping cyber simple. Yes, there is nothing new under the sun. We're still in our attacks and countermeasures. Let's talk about some common security practices. Common security practices. So when we think about some things that we do to mitigate attacks, and this is by no means an exhaustive list, but these are some things to think about. We're going to talk about implicit deny, least privilege, separation of duties, time of day restrictions, and privilege management. Okay. Implicit deny. This is very important. Implicit deny means that everything is denied unless it is, implicitly approved. Implicit deny takes everything not given specific and selected permissions as suspicious, meaning we don't trust anything. Everything is that. Now, where you're going to see this many times is in ACL, in access control lists, ACLs. So when especially on our network infrastructure devices, or layer 2, layer 3 devices, where we are setting up access lists, who can come in, who can't. We want to say nobody can come in unless you are unless you are implicitly allowed to come in. This is no different than, back in the day when you wanted to go to the club, right? And, and you had Guido and Geraldo and Tiny. I don't know. There was always a Tiny standing out there by the door like this, looking at you with that. They always look down at you. Even if they were short, they still look down at you. I don't know how they did that. Looking at you like this, meaning that you are denied to come in unless you are on the list. And the clubs I used to go to back in the day, they didn't have like a paper list. This was a list that the club owners, he knew who was supposed to be coming in and out of that club. So otherwise, everybody else were denied. No, you can't come in. And I walk up to the door. Hey, yeah, you know me. I'm Ray Ray's cousin. Oh, okay. Yeah, Ray, you know him? Yeah, he good. That's my cousin. Come on in. So, but until that point, deny. Same thing we should be doing, on our network and in the environment, right? Everything denied. And then we open up access as long as there is legitimate approvals and authorizations. Okay, and typically what you're going to see, like I said, in an access control list, that like I say, normally you're going to have a lot of different lines in there, but that last one typically is going to be deny everything unless it has been approved. Implicit deny, very important, very important. Least privilege. Least privilege. This is the principle that we only want to provide the minimum access necessary. We want to give people just enough access and privileges for them to do their jobs. So if you are a general user on a network, then all you need to do is to be able to go in and do your job. You're probably not going to have the ability to install applications. You're not going to have the ability to go in and look at GPO settings on the operating system, those types of things. If you are a system administrator or if you are a network administrator, you're going to have more privileges on that network. So, but still, even then, I'm not going to grant you everything. It just depends on what type of, if you're a system administrator, you may be, where you may not need to have everything. So that's what least privilege. You always want to do that, right? Only give people the amount of privileges that they're going to need to do their job. So separation of duties kind of follows into that same vein. Is we want certain things. We don't want to have one individual to have the keys to the kingdom. Okay, meaning that if I'm a system administrator, then I can't be an auditor. Or if I'm a data transfer agent, I don't want to give them system administrator privileges. Why? Because we want to be sure we have checks and balances, that we've given them least privileges, we've denied accesses unless it's explicitly approved, and we are separating their duties so that if I'm a system, now think about it. If I was a system administrator and the auditor, and I am a bad guy, right? So I can do something nefarious here. I've got auditing privileges, so now I can go in and cover my trails by deleting something out of the audit log or changing something within the audit log to cover what I've just done. That's the reason why you want to be sure that you maintain separation of duties. Time of day restrictions. Now, this is one that Many times it's not always implemented in many organizations. But what this is that we want to be sure that we don't have, especially if you're not a 24-hour operational environment, that we don't have people coming in after duty hours, that are doing things that we think that are not being monitored. So many times what organization will do is that, after a certain time, 6 p.m., then the network is shut down. They do similar things sometimes with proximity, meaning that if you have a laptop, you can only use that laptop in the proximity of the organization. So once you move outside of certain, you can't take that laptop home and use it, because now you have broken the geo fence that's been put around to where that laptop can be used. Time of day restrictions, like I say, it's good, but also we monitor these. Even if you're not managing it from a technical perspective, definitely recommend, if you are an auditor, that you are looking at time of day, who's logging on at 11 o'clock at night, is there data being moved, because that could be scripts that are running. So if I'm a smart guy, I'm not going to have to physically log in. I'm going to just write a script that will start moving that data at a certain time. So as an auditor, you also want to be able to audit from a time of day mentality, looking for those types of anomalies, right? And the last thing, how do you manage privileges within your organization? And really what this does, it ties together all those other pieces we just talked about. Understanding, from a system administrator perspective, first, access control, and this is a fallacy that I see in many organizations, okay? That we give the right to approve system changes to system administrators. I know somebody's saying, oh, what do you mean? That's our job, is to make changes. It is. Their job is to do the technical things responsible to make a change to the network. However, it is the information owner who should have the responsibility to grant privileges, okay? Not the system administrator. Just because I'm in an organization and I walk up to the system administrator and say, I need access to this folder, and I need privileged user rights on this machine. That system administrator should not be in a position to where he grants the approval. Someone in your organization who over that individual is the one who grants the approval, and then they tell the system administrator, yes, this individual is authorized to have access to this folder, and these permissions on this machine. So this is a very an area to be very aware of within our organizations, is the proper privilege management change process, that we're not levying all this on a system administrator. Then also, how do we audit this entire process? Once authentication has been given, once an authorization, once we've got, whatever it's a password, or if it's a CAC, all these things are done. Now, and how is that being audited? To ensure that the accounts that you've created, they're still viable. The people are still there. They haven't moved. The privileges, how are we managing privileges? Or how are we auditing privileges? Are we looking at privileges on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, yearly basis, to ensure that everyone who has privileges still need those privileges? This is so important when it comes to insider threat. Because what happens, privilege escalation, you're probably aware of that. You probably, from the Eric Snowdens of the world, yes, how a person can come into an organization, skip through those seams and start getting privilege escalation, and pretty soon they've got root access to our network devices, to our information system, and from there they can do a lot of damage. So this part right here is as important as the technical pieces. Many times we spend a lot of energy on the technical pieces, but if I don't have the right people who are approving privileges, we're doing our organization a grave disjustice. All right, keeping cyber simple. We're got one more section. We're gonna come back, do a summary, and yes, a quiz. So join us for this next session. This next session as we go into attacks, countermeasures, summary, and a quiz.